Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Truth, Lies, and Shenanigans. My name is Neo, and we have Jam.
Woo! Woo!
We have Lizzie.
Happy Sunday, everyone. Hope everyone is safe and sound and not as exhausted as I am.
All right. And we have a very special guest host today, B Girl.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here.
Hey, B Girl, welcome. All right.
Welcome.
So, what is Truth, Lies, and Shenanigans all about? We share our truth with you, call out all those lies, and point out the shenanigans going on. And we try to have some fun with some shenanigans of our own. But the most important thing about this show is you. So we insist on doing our show live because of that. We want to talk with you, not just to you. Okay? So join in the conversation. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, leave comments in the comment section or hit us up on Twitter at TLS Live Show. Your comments and questions will display on the screen above my head, and we'll call out some good ones if we see them. All right. Now, reminder, if you're in one of the Facebook watch parties, we can't see your comments in those. So for us to see your comments, you have to leave that watch party and join the direct feed on our page. All right. So we have one rule on the show. No cussing. So Jan, tell everyone what happens if you use that foul language.
If you use that foul language, like the lady below me,
Oh, yeah. Let's see.
He wrote me beautiful letters.
Could you put the score? Oh,
And they're
thank you.
great
Thank you.
letters.
So if you use curse
love.
word once in the show, $10. Twice in the show, $10. So $20 total. 3 times, $30. Plus, we get to write, those of us who are not cursors, we get to write a special love letter for the cursor to Donald Trump. They got to keep that joint up on their page for 24 hours. The love letter can say anything B Girl, Neo, Jam, feels Lizzie needs to say. I mean, anyone needs to say. So that's what cursing.
What about cursing gestures?
Oh,
What about cursing gestures?
What's a cursing gesture? Let's see.
Let's see one.
I mean, like,
$20. Definitely not loud.
I didn't say anything. I didn't say a word.
It looks like Mike Winter said, let's see if some people can avoid cussing.
He was talking about Neo. That's who he was talking about.
I got $10, and that's only because I said a team's name. All right, so we have a great show ahead. We'll start with a short jam session, our version of Hot Topics. Then Liz will be asking the question, should kids be taking their Heinies to college? Is college worth it? Then we'll end our show bringing back the popular game, Would You Rather? All right, so now we get to introduce you to B Girl. She's a college student who has a ton of personality, a unique perspective, strong opinions, and a lot to talk about. So, B Girl, whenever we bring a new guest host on, we put them in the hot seat. So you ready for that? All right. So let's see. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask you a few rapid fire questions, and you just answer as fast as you can with the first thing that comes to your mind. All right? So I'm going to ask the questions. Are you ready?
No.
All right.
Unless you want to.
B Girl. Love or money?
Money.
Okay. Money.
I have tuition to pay. I can't write to you.
Right out the gate. Right out the gate.
All right then. Money
Goodness,
or
this is
power?
hot seat. What did you say?
Money or power?
Money or power? Power.
Oh, okay. R&B or rock and roll?
Oh, R&B for sure. For
All right.
sure.
Dress up or dress down?
Dress up.
All right. Reading or watching a movie?
Reading. I'm a read the book kind of girl, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, that's great.
Oh, not unfortunately. I'm a bookworm. That's great. That's great.
Read those books,
great-
kids.
And most movies start off as books first.
That's what I'm
There's
saying.
some
The
great
book's
comic
always
books
better.
and graphic novels. Great
Right.
comic books and graphic novels out there. Oh my God. Like Larry Goes to Camp, Sammy Walks Up the Hill. Those are some of the best I've read recently. It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
All right, dogs or cats?
Dogs.
All right, Hillary or Biden?
Hillary for sure. I gotta go with my girl.
All right.
Sorry, Biden. He
Jim?
was cool under Obama. Not sure about now.
All right, Jim or playing sports?
Sports for sure. Sports for sure.
All right, braids or au natural?
I gotta go with braids. I know I'm rocking au natural right now, but the braids, I love them.
I always thought braids
Nothing
were
better.
natural. I always thought they were.
That's what I do.
It depends on the type of braids.
Yeah.
It depends on the type of braids.
That's
if you have
true.
extensions, that's technically not au natural.
I should have said extensions.
But to what B girl said, au natural is not easy. Y'all see the head wrap, right?
Oh,
This is the constant head wrap.
I thought that was your mic.
All right, Jennifer Lopez movies or her music?
I will say Jennifer Lopez music for
All
sure.
right. All right, so you made it through the hot seat. Good job. Good job. Yeah. All right. Good job. Good job. All right. So let's move on. Let's ask a question of our hosts. All right. So let me get to it. All right. Forgot. I lost track. Dang. All right.
Keep it up. Keep up.
I'm
Neil.
trying to keep up. I'm trying to keep up.
Neo's in the hot seat now.
All right. So, I still lost it. All right. So, here it is. Got it. All right. If you could be in a movie of your choice, what movie would you choose and what character would you play? I'll start with Jam.
Oh, don't be like that. Avengers, Black Panther is cool, but Iron Man still has a ass suit. Not War Machine. He's some trash. Iron Man.
Iron Man. All right.
Iron Man.
Lizzie?
Pass to B girl.
Pass. Eagle.
I will say Harry Potter had my heart as a child. I've been waiting for my letter to Hogwarts. I would be not Harry, but I would be one of the Weasleys. Like I would want to be one of his friends. I wouldn't want to I just would want to do my little magic in the corner. Don't worry about me. No need to fight the Lord of Evil. I'm good over here. I just want some magic. I want a little hocus pocus, a little bippity boppity. So that's where I would be.
B girl.
You know Ron Weasley is my favorite. And you know he just had a baby. Ron Weasley just had a baby. How crazy is that?
With Hermione?
No.
B girl. I just
All right.
want you to know, your parents called us and they let us know they kept that letter all these years.
All these years,
Yeah.
I should have known.
They
I should have
locked you
known.
upstairs and kept the letter. That was all them.
Wow, I was all them, I'm sure. I've been
All right,
waiting
Lizzie.
for it forever.
Shady.
Lizzie, back to you.
I guess I'm going to have to take it back to the 80s. And this is just because I can't really think of any other movie right now. But the 80s, one of my favorite movies, 16 Candles. I would have to play the Molly Ringwald character and go get me some Jake Ryan. Woo! He was fine.
What would you wish for if you had 16 candles?
What
What
was
would
that?
the wish be? What would the wish be if you had 16 candles?
That the movie ends early?
Oh
Jesus.
God!
Thank
That
you, Jam.
Jake Ryan at the end of the movie got down on that knee. Instead of giving me a birthday cake, that he got down on that knee and just popped the question. Boom.
All right. I'm going with the Matrix, and I actually couldn't decide between Neo and Morpheus, but I'm going with Neo.
You're halfway there.
Of course you are.
Don't be mad.
All right. So let's move on to some shout outs. What we got?
I'd like to be the first to shout out. Shout out to Prince Rogers Nelson. Today would have been his 60th 42nd birthday. We lost him 4 years ago. I still love you. I'm still all about that purple love. So rest in peace, brother.
All right.
Shout out to Salai. Thank you so much. She gave us our show some love from New Zealand. She said she enjoyed watching and that we should stay healthy and watch our lives because they matter. Thanks a lot. Good looking out.
Girl, you got any shout outs?
I'm going to say shout out to my mother, Dr. Blaine. Without her, I would not be going to college. And we'll get into that a little bit later.
But you would have gone to Hogwarts. You would have gone to Hogwarts.
I would have gone to Hogwarts. Skip college entirely. Hogwarts is the way to go. Magic.
All right, I have a shout out. I like to shout out the Greenbelt, Maryland Police Department. Yesterday I was at a small protest and had a fantastic, honest discussion with Officer Decaba and Chief Bowers, actually the chief, about how I felt and what was going on. And I shared some experience, they shared some experience, and we had a good talk. So I'm actually going a little more detail in the jam session topic. So actually, the chief offered to have one of his officers come on the show and continue the conversation. So maybe we can do that.
Welcome.
All right. Great job. All right, guys. So let's move on into jam sessions.
All right.
How this works, each host comes with hot topics they want to discuss, mostly based on discussions they've had with you online and what you want to talk about. One of our hosts will start us off in like a jazz jam session. We just jump in and let the conversation flow. Once time is up, you'll hear this. All right. And we'll move on to the next host, and they'll talk about whatever they want. And remember, your comments and questions do help drive the conversation. So make sure you're making those comments online. Today, I think I'll start with Jam, since it's a jam session.
Oh, Teddy.
Jam, what are we talking about first?
All right. We're talking about. I had a pretty bitter itch the other day. Was thinking about Rand Paul and his consistency. Like if there's someone who can hold up any process that should be moving forward, it is Rand Paul.
Any good process.
And I have a question for you, but I just wanted to walk you guys through a few. I wanted to ask you guys what makes a person a racist. That was my question. Now, Rand Paul happens to be holding up the anti-lynching bill because he feels that people who get pushed down or scratched or barely touched might be wrapped up in that legally if it were to happen. But I want to walk you through a little Rand Paul history, recent Rand Paul history. I can't give you his full book because we don't have time for that. Now, Rand Paul, he does have a medical degree from Duke. When he became a senator, he also
Mike Winter, he's one of yours. Mike Winter, he's one of yours.
He also claimed to have several bachelor's degrees. They never found proof of those, but it's either biology or English, depending upon the day. They kind of making the quote. So he also passed on a little possible corona before he announced that he had been tested for the corona. And so went into his own personal lockdown. He did remind Dr. Fauci that he was not the end all of information, and it came to, his dad, somebody who worked on his original senatorial campaign had to be let go because he just happened to be a former pro-secessionist radio host who had applauded or encouraged the, assassination of Abraham Lincoln, among other things. But, it's not that his dad also had several quotes, including one of my favorites. After the Los Angeles riots, one article in a newspaper claimed, order was only restored to LA when it came time for the blacks to pick up their welfare checks. I'm not throwing rocks. I'm not saying he is a racist. I'm not saying his dad was a racist. I'm just saying that I'm just asking what makes a racist. Throw it out there to the crew.
All right, Liz, you start off.
What makes a racist? Talked about this a lot in my classes at Howard. Anyone who feels an inherent hatred for another race, but also that they are superior to another race, that race is beneath them, and that they consistently are proactive with those beliefs. To me, that's what makes a racist. Rand Paul.
You should get some water for that. Where's your drink? Where's your drink?
B-girl?
Yeah, I would say anyone who holds up an anti-lynching bill, like that's the straight definition. Like you're a racist at that point. I don't see anything around it. I don't believe that the bill's gonna hurt people. I was like, he's defending like, oh, if it's a minor crime, like if I just like punch that person, maybe then they shouldn't be charged. But I think that's ridiculous. I think Rand Paul's a racist and he should come out and just say it. Just be honest, right? I mean, be honest.
Living your truth, Rand Paul. Living your truth.
What
I
you
think
got?
his neighbor needs to whip his ass again.
Yeah.
Again, ooh, $10. $10.
Oh yeah,
Rand gets one and Neo gets one.
that's what I think needs to happen. I think his neighbor needs to, yeah, his neighbor needs to take another few punches. So, that's what I
All
need.
right. Thank you, Neo. That's it. Y'all answered my question. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your sincerity.
All right. So let's go ahead and move on to Lizzie. Thank you, Jan, for that.
So we are going to revisit one of my jam session topics from last week. So a week ago, we were talking about New Orleans Saints NFL quarterback Drew Brees and his comments regarding George Floyd and protesting, Colin Kaepernick's protests from 2016 in the NFL, in which he took a knee during the national anthem. Drew Brees came out, and again, I should have prefaced this by saying I love Drew Brees, but Drew Brees came out and said that he will never support anyone taking a knee. And then he went on this whole rant about how his grandfather was in the military and blah, blah, blah. But anyone asked him about his grandparents. So, of course, the backlash was very swift. It was sometimes ugly. But a lot of people, including LeBron James, including one of Brees' own teammates, Malcolm Jenkins, got into that arse. And so since then, and I can say this, that with all of the public backlash that he received, imagine what he received behind the scenes. Imagine all the people that called him up, texted him, emailed him, and was like, yo. And so subsequent to that, Drew Brees came out. You know, he had a come to Chanel moment, and he decided that he was going to offer an apology. And so it appeared to be, in my opinion, a very heartfelt apology. And I only say this because I know before he made those statements, Drew Brees had been very active in the community, had been very progressive in his ideas and his beliefs on change in America. And so his, I hate to say this, his boy, Donald Trump, took issue with Drew Brees offering an apology. And so my question to you all is, first, before I read Drew Brees' response, did you feel that his apology was real, that it had any type of merit?
I'll jump in first. So I actually think his apology was sincere in that his friends and people spoke to him and might have explained some things to him. But ultimately, I think it had more to do with sponsorships and money.
Sponsorships, money, and possibly a little bit of fear. I mean, he still has to, you know, go into that locker room. He still has to line up with, you know, those Black players on his team, which is why I kind of also took exception to Donald Trump's response, because I'm like, you know, don't buy into that BS, because Donald Trump is there to just, you know, add fuel to the fire. He does not have a real good history with Black people, certainly isn't working with a lot of Black people except for coons like Ben Carson and Kanye or what have you, but he's also not in an NFL locker room. He doesn't have to deal with these players on a daily basis. So his perspective is completely different from what you would get from, or what a Drew Brees would experience. But let me just read a portion of what Drew Brees had to say, because he came back and wrote something to Trump. So he said, to President Trump, Through my ongoing conversations with friends, teammates, and leaders in the Black community, I realized that this is not an issue about the American flag. It never has been. We can no longer use the flag to turn people away or detract them from the real issues that face our Black communities. I did this back in 2017, and regretfully, I brought it back with my comments this week. We must stop talking about the flag and shift our attention to the real issues of systemic racial injustice, economic oppression, police brutality, and judicial and prison reform. We are at a critical juncture in our nation's history. If not now, then when?
First off,
So what is your response to that?
First off, he needs to finish paying Obama's speechwriter before he.
Hey, he graduated from Purdue. He graduated from Purdue.
I think I heard you. All I'm saying is, first off, I've never seen Drew Brees drop that many words together like that. But I don't know him that well. We didn't grow up together. So I would go with, as to your first question, sincerity, it's there. Maybe somebody did sit down with him and bring a full awareness to him. Because some of the football players, if not all of them, I have to grant them a little extra love and a little bit of time. Because this is the time they'd be revving up to do their normal jobs and careers, impressing the world. And now they're sitting there doing nothing. And so they hear something, and that might be and then somebody's like, hey, get off the sugar. let's talk about this for a minute. So I think he's sincere. I think he just got caught not thinking.
All right. Girl,
I would give mostly the benefit of the doubt.
Got caught up in his privilege. Got caught up in his privilege, which his wife gave a response today also, which was more profound than what Drew wrote. And she acknowledged, we have privilege as white people. We were not listening. We were not paying attention. We are part of the problem.
Yep.
B-girl?
I agree. I think I would like to give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't want to cancel anyone too early, and I'm glad that he gave this apology. I'm sure it was edited. I'm sure someone looked at it. I'm sure he owes Obama's speechwriter a lot of money. But I would agree. I think as long as he is genuine and he's calling for action and he's being clear about the fact that racial discrimination and inequality exists and that there's something that we need to do about it, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm hoping that behind closed doors he isn't. I hope this is genuine. I really do. And that he didn't feel pressured into this, that he really felt this. But for the most part, I think he was genuine, and I think he deserves that little bit of forgiveness.
And Drew's wife should definitely pay Michelle as well. As well.
All right. I just want to point out some comments real quick. Comments online. We have Ernest Cooper says, Drew Brees for nationalism and status quo, no empathy in his DNA. I believe his apology requires action. It will take time before I'm ready to accept it. We have Ernest Cooper also saying, why are racists ashamed to own up to their racism? Mike Winter says that Bama knew after his mess in 2017, he learned nothing new, including how to read the room. Goodell is the only thing that changed. And
Can I just comment on Ernest Cooper's comment? Ernest Cooper, ladies and gentlemen, is a native Washingtonian, but is also a Cowboys fan. And so, as Jamel Hill pointed out,
Wait. Boo.
Boo, Ernest Cooper. But as Jamel Hill pointed out on her Twitter this week, Jerry Jones, the owner of the Cowboys, was also making comments in 2016, 2017 about players kneeling, about players taking a protest during the game. And he basically threatened his players and told them not to kneel. In the same vein, he went and signed very problematic player, domestic violence player, Greg Hardy. Boom. Ernest Cooper. Boom.
all right, running out of time. All right.
Fix your own house. Fix your own house.
And B, you got a couple of shout outs from Randolph and Zuleika. So,
Very cool. Good to hear from them.
What's up, Z?
Z.
Ernest is going to be my friend anymore after this, y'all.
All right, so we're going to move on to the next one, and I'll go ahead and take the next one.
Yes, Ernest. Yes, much better.
So, all right, guys. So for my first topic, I want to show you guys a video clip of Kimberly Jones. This was actually sent to me by one of our followers, Jennifer Kinley. I appreciate it. Thank you. The video is long. I clipped it to a little over 2 minutes, a little 2.5 minutes. And in the video, Kimberly is a Black author, passionately discusses the difference between protesters and looters and rioters. And she doesn't exactly justify the looting, but she explains why it's happening, and she breaks it down pretty well. And she's, I think it was pretty valuable to listen to. So I'm gonna go ahead and play it.
Let's never forget that economics was the reason that Black people were brought to this country. We came to do the agricultural work in the South and the textile work in the North. If I right now decided that I wanted to play Monopoly with you, and for 400 rounds of playing Monopoly, I didn't allow you to have any money, I didn't allow you to have anything on the board, I didn't allow for you to have anything. Not only do you not get to play, you have to play on the behalf of the person that you're playing against. You have to play and make money and earn wealth for them, and then you have to turn it over to them. So then for 50 years, you finally get a little bit and you're allowed to play. And every time that they don't like the way that you're playing, or that you're catching up, or that you're doing something to be self-sufficient, they burn your game. They burn your cards. They burn your Monopoly money. And then finally at the release and the onset of that, they allow you to play and they say, okay, now you catch up. Now at this point, the only way you're going to catch up in the game is if the person shares the wealth, correct? But what if every time you share the wealth, then there's psychological warfare against you to say, oh, you're an equal opportunity hire. So if I played 400 rounds of Monopoly with you and I had to play and give you every dime that I made, and then for 50 years, every time that I played, if you didn't like what I did, you got to burn it like they did in Tulsa and like they did in Rosewood, how can you win? How can you win? You can't win. The game is fixed. So when they say, why do you burn down the community? Why do you burn down your own neighborhood? It's not ours. We don't own anything. There's a social contract that we all have, that if you steal or if I steal, then the person who is the authority comes in and they fix the situation. But the person who fixes the situation is killing us. So the social contract is broken. And if the social contract is broken, why the fuck do I give a shit about burning the fucking Football Hall of Fame, about burning a fucking Target? You broke the contract when you killed us in the streets and didn't give a fuck. You broke the contract when for 400 years we played your game and built your wealth. You broke the contract when we built our wealth again on our own, by our bootstraps in Tulsa, and you dropped bombs on us. When we built it in Rosewood and you came in and you slaughtered us. You broke the contract, so fuck your Target. Fuck your Hall of Fame. As far as I'm concerned, they could burn this bitch to the ground. And it still wouldn't be enough. And they are lucky that what Black people are looking for is equality and not revenge.
Okay.
So before we get into the discussion, I counted at least 7 curse words there.
That does not
So
count
that's
against me.
$70
That does
for
not
Neo.
count
$70
against me.
for
I see the
Neo.
motion. I see the motion.
Yeah.
No,
Good money over love.
if you can get away with cussing with quotes, I get away with showing cussing in videos. All right. So my question is, I just really want to get your thoughts on the video, and I'll start with E-Girl actually.
Yeah. So that was actually my first time seeing most of the video. I had seen a clip before. That was really powerful, like very emotional, invoked a lot of emotion in me. I can't, like, I agree. Like when I was watching it, I think the frustration and the riots and the looting we're seeing now, a lot of it is due to the fact that people feel like they're playing a rigged game. And I had a focus group the other day with we run a program at my school for the honors students of color, and we kind of come together and we talk about it, since a lot of us are like the only African American in a room, and a lot of times. And we have this discussion about it, and so many of them had been to the protests, and they don't condone violence, but at the same time, they are so frustrated with what they've seen and the way that the police were treating them. and they are frustrated with the system that keeps them in these classrooms with people that don't look like them, but these are their honors classes. And so I can't help but feel that pain. And I don't condone violence, and I don't recommend anyone burn anything, but that's how people are feeling. I remember the first week after I found out about George Floyd's death, I wanted to throw things. I wanted to yell at people. And I think asking African Americans and asking people of color who are affected by this to put on like a nice face and continue to talk politics and continue to just wait, because I think we're hearing wait a lot, or to protest in a different way, I think is unfair. I think they were upset when we kneeled for the anthem, and how do you want us to protest? And that's kind of my question here in this kind of rigged game, rigged system. We've been waiting for so long.
All right, Lizzie.
A couple of things. One, she mentioned the word contract, and it brought me back to a conversation that Trevor Noah had maybe 2 weeks ago about, or maybe even a week ago, about all of the protests.
She referenced Noah.
Yeah, and it's a good point to make, because America has not kept the contract with Black people. America has not kept the contract with people of color in this country. Even if I am a law-abiding, civilized, educated, tax-paying citizen, I'm still judged based on the color of my skin. Not on my actions, but on the color of my skin. So then why would I buy into this contract where I'm never on equal standing? I'm never on equal footing. And also I understood her passion, and it was something that B-Girl just mentioned in her response, and that imagine if George Floyd was your son. And you saw, not only did you find out that he was murdered by the police, but you saw the video. You saw him as he was losing the life out of his body. And as we know, his mom died a few years ago. In his final moments, he called on his mother. If that were me, I would want to tear everything up. Yeah. Everything up. But then you think about the people who are protesting, and it's not just George Floyd. It's years of this type of activity and behavior, yep. Years of anger, years of oppression. So people are angry. And I'm not saying that I am advocating for any type of looting or whatsoever, but I understand it.
Yep. All right, Jan?
I think you guys covered most of the feelings.
They did, actually.
Fairly accurate.
Ladies first.
I used to find myself reflecting when I used to work up in Bethesda, and I was in a room with two very conservative coworkers. It's me, this Jewish guy, this black guy, and this Hispanic lady. And I'm not going to tell you who was the more conservative of the group. This is like 2-on-2 or 2-on-1. One dude would just blow out.
I know.
And our conversations when we got to like murders of people of color, it would always come to they deserved it. And I had to look at one of the guys who I was talking to, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, there's just no win. You can't continue to have people do everything and still catch a bullet. That doesn't make sense. And you can't, to me, the riots, like it's been said 1,000 million trillion times. No, they're not the best way to get what people want in their neighborhoods. Yes, spending will have to occur, but hold on. Spending is going to have to occur when the hurricanes come through, when any other natural disaster comes through. That is a part of the process. What should not be a part of the process is the social contract that is continually broken between the police and people of color. But more importantly, is not acknowledged when people, especially like people I used to work with up in Bethesda, they would come out of their office and they'd go have a steak at the hotel downstairs, and have a steak, and the servers, of course, would all be of color from random places, and there'd be this smooth, quick interaction, and there's no acknowledgement that these people live at such a lower socioeconomic status than them, that when they say some of these things, the people they're interacting with are the people or representative of the people who have a similar type of jobs that have to deal with even more BS than those of us who have some privilege and a higher income. Because those are the people who get exposed to jump a little bit, but still stay on the same subject, who get exposed more to COVID, because they have to do their job, because they don't have the ease of working from home or doing the other stuff. And that frustration, plus the fact that when you're walking home, when you're getting out of your car, when maybe you did go a little too fast or maybe you didn't, you still get pulled over by some cop who's like, hey, you know who I feel like messing with today? You. So I'm done.
Just my last comment is I was extremely angry when it happened, and honestly, I felt like I've supported the riots and the looting and all of that because similar to how she felt at the end, burn it down. I didn't care. Somehow somebody's going to listen to us. So that's how I felt. That's not necessarily how I feel now, but that's how I felt then.
But real quick, if you get to die in front of it, why the hell can't you burn it down?
Agreed.
I mean,
all right. So we're going to move on to V Girl. Sorry to bring that ahead of you.
No problem.
All right, V Girl. What we got? Oh, let me.
Okay, so first, I'm going to start with Anonymous, which is a group of hackers. They've been accredited to a lot of work, illegal activity that is like somehow morally acceptable. So they were accredited a while back. They hacked the website Ashley Madison, which is a site for spouses who want to cheat on other spouses, and they released their information. They hacked the Ku Klux Klan, and they released information about people that were remaining anonymous members of the Ku Klux Klan, and they released their information, made them public, got a lot of them fired. So they have threatened to attack both the Minneapolis PD as well as Donald Trump. They made a video claiming that they would. The Minneapolis PD website went down not too long ago, and they claimed credit for the attack. It's worth noting that people have reviewed this, analyzed this. They're not sure if it's the actual group Anonymous. You can never tell with Facebook and Twitter accounts. A Twitter account calling themselves Anonymous claimed credit for this cyber attack. So we're unsure as of right now, but I thought this was a really interesting topic because I thought it would make for a fun conversation. And my first question to you all would be, what do you think of this form of like, they call it hacktivism. So this like technically non-violent form of activism in the form of like taking data, releasing that data, making it public. So that would be my first starter question for everyone.
All right, let's start with Jam.
My first thought is remember the 5th of December. Or is it November? Anyway, it's a quote from the Guy Fawkes mask, who is the mask that Anonymous uses. And so I love it. I think it is effective. I think it creates fear. I think these last 2 attacks have been like, I love the fact that they threatened Trump about it, but like the first little bit of information they released is the same type of stuff. If I wanted to tell you that my daughter wasn't acting good, I'd show you a picture of her doing one thing and being like, ooh, scary. You know, so I'd like for them to step up their game a bit to be, if that's not, go like you're supposed to go. Because
you're giving them the green light.
To me, groups like that, if you're gonna be baller and be a hacker, this is almost why you exist. This is why Julian Assange should have existed to me. Like
right,
all those people who came out and had stuff to throw, bam. Anyway.
Liz, what you got?
Yeah, go ahead.
What you say?
My question is, they're just now threatening Trump? Like, where have they been for the
I know, right?
We could have used a good hack right after the inauguration. Like, come on, get in it, get in the mix.
That's a good note. The reason a lot of experts are suspicious and not sure if it's Anonymous is that Anonymous has been silent for several years now. So they're not sure if they're back. They haven't done anything. They had done some big hacks before. So there was the KKK, Ashley Madison, as well as I think they hacked the Federal Reserve once. So they've done some very big things, and currently we haven't seen anything big from them, as Jam mentioned. So, but where are they now is a good question. Why didn't they start earlier?
So
where they're
I was just all for exposure of cretins and BS. So if you're out there, Anonymous, and you're listening and you're watching Truth, Lies, and Shenanigans, come help us out. Come help us out.
as you were talking, I decided
activity.
as you were talking, I decided to Google Trump and Anonymous, and I happened to find a image that supposedly, allegedly, was leaked by Anonymous of Trump. So let me see if I can get this up here.
Don't show us no nasty Trump Russia pics.
Oh,
Oh, no.
disclaimer on that.
Where's my trash?
This is not what we wanted, Anonymous. Oh, give us
We all gotta go get some shots.
But I mean, throughout the entire Trump presidency so far, the issue of his tax returns has been at the forefront of a lot of his controversy. Anonymous, you should be able to get into those records and expose that right away. Deutsche Bank almost released that information. So yeah, Anonymous, come on, help us out.
I'm sure they locked that stuff down immediately.
So you're condoning these illegal activities? That's what I'm hearing.
You don't know Liz E very well.
Oh.
All right.
It's so illegal.
All right, we've got to run through the last few topics, guys, because we're way over time. All right, so Jam.
All right. I don't know. For those of you who are theater people, the CEO of Second City resigned. What's important about this? Well, it's a twofold thing. He was co-owner, and Andrew Alexander, co-owner and CEO of Second City, resigned amid claims of racism. And what's important about this, in my opinion, is Second City is the foremost school in improvisation. Any name you know from Saturday Night Live, or half the names you know from Saturday Night Live, are from that show. To give you an example, a few of its graduates are Alan Arkin, James Belushi, John Belushi, Chris Farley, John Candy, Jane Lynch, Stephen Colbert, Steve Carell, Tim Meadows, Amy Sedaris, and that's just the ones who you would know the best. To me, it's monumental in that when I was a student studying improvisation, like this is one of the places you want it to be. And to see that they're making that movement, even if it's just small at first, means that there'll be an opening for a new type of comedian that we've barely seen, more Wayne Brady's, more, so much more. There's a lot of potential there. So I wanted to get y'all's thoughts on that if you had one. I just wanted to throw that information out there. Go theater people! You don't have to be in Rent. Anyway. There's my news for the day.
Let's go with Lizzie.
Comments, welcome.
No, my question is, so you said that you had past experience with this group, correct?
Yes, but I was just I had a training workshop at my school.
So, I mean, but how was your training workshop? Like, did you feel as if there were some racist undertones there?
It's hard to say. So my college was about 3% African American. So there's a lot to that statement. That's like saying, hey, when I walked into the bar, everybody turned and looked. Was it because? I would say that you wonder sometimes, but with that particular moment, I was there enjoying the learning, because you don't get to learn with somebody who's famous too often, So I would decline to say that. Some of the writers who've gone on to other shows like Key and Peele, they're the ones who made the accusation. So those guys, I would believe. Right. I don't have their names handy. Dwayne Perkins, sorry, is one of them. But yeah, I'd say there's definitely the possibility there.
Okay.
But they are focused on comedy and they're learning. If you think of the old Ghostbusters versus the newer one with the ladies, there's some. Anyway, another discussion.
All right, big girl, I'll let you comment real quick.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as like a person who really enjoys theater and comedy, I'm excited to see, and I hope we see the change toward like smarter comedians, because I think comedians are finding out that like racism isn't a joke. You can't just be joking about race or say something, be a bigot and expect people to listen to you. And so I think this is a positive change, and I'm hoping we get some really dynamic, more interesting comedians out of it.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So next, Lizzie.
So very quickly, there was another apology this week. First, we had Drew Brees, and then we had the organization that Drew Brees works for. which is the NFL and the commissioner Roger Goodell.
Can we
So
play it?
yes, please.
It has been a difficult time for our country, in
He looking a little
particular Black people in our
He
country.
is. COVID.
First, my condolences
we
to
all
the
are,
families
right?
of George Floyd, Breonna
Yeah.
Taylor,
Right.
Ahmaud Arbery, and all the
Well done.
families who have endured police brutality. We, the National Football League, condemn racism and the systematic oppression of Black people. We, the National Football League, admit we were wrong for not listening to NFL players earlier
That
and
was the
encourage
moment.
all to speak
Colin
out
Kaepernick
and
just walked
peacefully
on
protest.
and been like, "Hey, buddy," and they should have hugged.
We, the
Right.
National Football League, believe Black Lives Matter. I personally protest with you and want to be part of the much needed change in this country.
She got something.
Without Black players, there would be no National Football League.
Lies and
And the protests around the country are emblematic of the centuries of silence, inequality, and oppression of Black players,
Uh-oh.
coaches, fans, and staff. We are listening. I am listening. And I will be reaching out to players who have raised their voices and others on how we can improve and go forward for a better and more united NFL family.
So before I pose the question, I just want to say this about this apology. I think the audience needs to understand that so far the NFL is pretty much on track to try to start their season in the fall. One of the biggest things that they are afraid of, with the backdrop of the George Floyd protest and likening that to him being killed by a knee on the neck versus Colin Kaepernick taking a knee to protest that type of brutality. One of the biggest things that I think the NFL is afraid of at this point is on opening weekend, the first game, all players are kneeling. All players are protesting. All players are kneeling with their fists in the air or their finger in the air or whatever, saying, "We told you so." So he's trying to get in front of this. So again, my question to you with the second apology of the day is, do you buy it?
Oh, no. That's
No, not at all.
That's easy.
It sounds like we messed up. We need you to keep watching us so that we can make money. I'd like him to make a large donation to the Minneapolis Bail Fund before I even listen to anything he has to say.
And in terms of donations, it should be noted that Roger Goodell makes about $45 million a year as NFL commissioner.
I'm gonna need 40 million of that directly. Corporations. Directly to me, actually. Please.
I know that my friend RoboCop and I, we were sitting down talking about it, and he was like, "I'll buy that for $1," and I was like, "I'll buy that for 50 cents." BS.
All right.
Just trash.
So there's a bunch of
Just
comments online. Why no apology for Kaepernick? Kevin says my players will quit. I gotta say something. And
Exactly.
I want to address this comment. Came from Pa Whelan, and actually I want Liz to address it.
You must have seen my expression when I first saw it.
Oh, you did see it. Okay.
Can we all get a word in? Can we all get a word in?
So I'm gonna read it. Matter of fact, I'm gonna bring it back up. Actually, Jam, since you have it up, can you read it?
Yes, I will read it.
I'll bring it back up.
Paul Whelan, I hope I pronounced that correctly. You think the sign should say "Pound Lives Matter"? That kind of includes everyone on one plane, and isn't it just about one color? Brings more unity to it. You think?
And I just want to say, this may be more about ignorance than racism. So, go for it.
I don't.
Teach. I want you to teach.
I don't for a second believe that was a question that was wrapped in racism.
Right.
But my response to that is, if you could put the question back up again, my response to that is the reason why it shouldn't be Pound Lives Matter. First of all, that's not an official movement. The movement is Black Lives Matter, particularly Black Lives Matter for this area, Black Lives Matter DC. But he said that kind of includes everyone on one plane, and isn't it just about one color? Yes, it's just about it isn't, he said it isn't just about one color. But when it comes to this type of police brutality, when it comes to what we're talking about here, it is about one color. It's about black color. It's about brown skin. Over and over and over again, how we are overly policed by law enforcement in our neighborhoods and in our communities. And so when people say all lives matter, okay, that's a given. But what isn't a given in this country is Black Lives Matter. And so that's why we have to keep reinforcing that and letting people know, yeah, I'm not saying that all lives shouldn't matter, don't matter. What I'm trying to get the point across to you is my Black life matters.
When it generally hasn't. So
Exactly.
right. So
Yeah.
and I want B Girl to make a quick comment on that too. But before you do, I
Um,
just want to read one of the other comments. Rupka says, ignorance sustains racism. And I just want to say that's why we teach, because some people just don't understand. I mean, because all lives do matter. We agree with that. But that's not the issue. That's the problem. Go ahead, B Girl.
I agree. I think understanding there's nothing wrong with the phrase all lives matter, but like that phrase is a protest to the Black Lives Matter protest. And I think what we're making clear here is that Black lives aren't treated as if they matter. And I think it's very clear. Everyone should know that, Black lives matter because all lives matter. And we have seemed to forget that in our judicial system and in the way that we, as Lizzie said, over police Black neighborhoods. And so I think it's very important to bring that up. And that they should use the hashtag Black Lives Matter. I think that the NFL, if they're going to continue this apology, need to take more steps.
Yep. And Jam, you want to jump in real quick?
Yeah, real quick. Keep in mind, Paul, and anyone else who feels this way, that our system, our country is built on taking advantage of different native peoples. And so as people of color have been wound up into that, the first movies made, literally, Birth of a Nation,
Birth of a Nation.
reimagining people of color, not only as people to take advantage of, but people to be scared of if you don't need them for labor. That is something that is a vein that's run through our country in various forms, in religion, in non-religion, in TV, in music. And so to try to get rid of that designation is to not acknowledge the history of the country and what it is that these police officers are playing out through their brutality.
Yep.
So
I just want to read a couple of messages. If all lives mattered, then we wouldn't have issues. That's from Kevin. And then Rupka says, yes, ma'am, B Girl, nailed it. It is a protest against Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. All right, let's move on to our last couple of topics. Actually, B Girl, I'll let you go ahead and take the next one.
Yes. So mine's really quick and a little bit lighter. So there was a UK like tech company that made this like bat-like sensor to help maintain social distancing in the workplace. So as we start to think about like what will work and what will school and those things look like post COVID-19, this is a sensor that like if you get too close to a coworker, it makes this like screeching noise, kind of like a car alarm. So that you know to like take a step back. And so I just thought it was funny. And my question for you guys are kind of, what do you think the workplace will look like after COVID-19? A lot of companies are going to try to take advantage and make these technologies to maintain social distancing. Or do you think workplaces will stay largely remote for a very long time?
So go ahead, Jam.
I think
Go ahead,
it depends
please.
on the industry. I think for industries like the service industry and restaurants and things like that, I think they initially want to jump right into it right away. But as we see even now over the past week or two, the numbers are starting to slow. The COVID numbers are slowly starting to rise again because people are getting way more comfortable. Um, that we might have to pull back from that. But I honestly believe that companies are going to start to take a look at the numbers, at the costs. And if it's cheaper for them to have everyone work remotely, work from home, not have to pay rent on a building, not have to, pay people to come into work every day. I do think, I think social distancing, I think the workplace is going to look a bit more like what we have experienced over the past 2 months. I think the pushback is going to be in education, and we'll talk about that a little bit with our main topic. But I don't think people, especially for elementary school kids, junior high school kids, I don't think America is really ready to fully commit to having online instruction for the entire education system in this country. And as an educator, I'm not ready to commit to that either.
Just want to throw out little comments online real quick. Mel Blaine says, oh my God, that would be awesome. I would use it without COVID being around. Just to keep people away. Kevin Daxton says, recommend we say physical distancing. We haven't stopped being social, just physically farther away. Love that idea.
Maria just put up a good point. She said, we scientists cannot do most work remotely. And that's something, again, that goes into depending on what type of industry we're talking about.
Yep. Did you want to have a comment?
I know my two things. First off, I would love something that screams at people when they get too close to me, because then I push it off. Just, ah! Oh, my bad.
Is there in a special setting that supporters they stay away from you?
Just a loud scream. That's all I need. It's like the wrap it up button. We're done. We're done here. Move along. So, but I would like to say I'm definitely with Liz. I think in places and jobs that can become more remote, the cost of those, especially as the government moves toward this, tries to spend less and less money. Like, there are extreme costs in the DC area that come with housing employees. Yep. And so, and beyond that, I think our culture, as we look at, Lyft and all these sort of to-go services, like these Web 2.0 services, Web 3.0, like this is all stuff. They want things to be compartmentalized. You cover your electronic costs. You cover your transportation costs. You will push as much of this as we can on you, so we as the business don't have to pay for it. So we don't have to treat you like a real person or a human being. I think it actually goes back to the whole idea of what it is to be an employee in America versus other countries that have a broader, more societal look at what it means to be employed.
Yeah. And my take is, most people in IT and if you can do your job, the same job that you do at an office, at home, stay at home. All right. This is the last jam session hot topic. And so we have these Minnesota police officers. There were, of course, 2 other officers that were involved. We saw the 2 officers, Tao and Chauvin, in the video. We saw them clearly. But there were 2 other officers on the back of George Floyd as he was dying. So apparently Chauvin was a training officer. And one of the cops on Floyd's back.
Really?
Yes. One of the cops on Floyd's back, Alexander Kung, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, hadn't yet completed his 3rd full shift as a police officer. I believe Kung is the one
in the middle. That's the brother in the middle.
Yeah. And he alleges he said to Chauvin, you shouldn't do that. All right. Then Thomas Lane, the one on the left, he alleges he said twice, shall we roll him over, and expressed Floyd may be in, quote, delirium. So I have a couple of questions, but, was this some training day type stuff, and do we give them a pass? I'm going to start with Jam.
First off, I can't use names. I can't remember everybody's name if you take the picture down. But
sorry, I'll put it back up.
So the young buck, the new trainee, it definitely has a feeling.
They're both new, actually.
Training day. Their names in there.
Kung.
Let's see. So
Kung is in the middle.
Lane No, he's a veteran. What's his name? Who was preaching people about staying in school on the right hand side? Bama, get out of here.
Oh yeah.
Maybe if you're in training, you're in training.
I didn't really try to include him.
Like if you're in training, like I hate to say it because it's such an egregious violation of a human's being like ability to live. But if you're in training, you're in training. Like I can almost put myself in his place. Like you are looking at what's supposed to be your bread and butter for the rest of your life. If you do something to this officer, they can be the one who says, "Nah, this guy's a problem, not him."
Okay, so
I
you
can
feel for
almost see
Kong.
that.
Liz?
I feel this much for him. Don't get me wrong. He should have done something. This is ridiculous.
Actually, I'm going to go to B girl. I'm sorry. Sorry, Liz. I want to go to B girl.
Yeah, I would just say like no. I think like no amount of like training should be needed. Where they say like if you're with your partner and he's got his knee on someone's neck, like basic human dignities, rights, compassion would tell you to stop him. Right? If he's George Floyd was yelling, "I can't breathe." Like if you hear that, there's no training session that'll fix that if you've ignored that. I understand like your place as I guess a lesser officer and you're worried about the conflict, but a man is dying on the floor. I think that's a shameful that you would need training or blame it on your lack of training to step in and do something.
All right. Lizzie?
I was just going to say, as it relates to, is his name Thomas Lane?
Yes, Thomas Lane.
Thomas Lane made a couple of points this week, but we know now that he is probably going to have charges brought up against him in addition to this because he illegally voted in Florida, I believe, while being a resident of Minnesota. But when you get back to the initial cop who caused all of this destruction and hurt, this is a guy, so he was their training officer. How on earth did the Minnesota Police Department assign him to train other cadets, other incoming police officers, when he had 18 complaints against him?
Ridiculous.
18.
It's the culture.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
Right.
And so while I don't give any of the three of these men a pass, a big pass. I do understand their logic in that he's our boss. We're supposed to do what he tells us to do. On the flip side, all of us here have had bosses, I presume. I know, I mean, I have had bosses since, Mayor Summer Youth at 14, but particularly in my job, as Sports Illustrated, my boss and I were constantly in conflict.
Yep.
Constantly. So sometimes, and like B Girl said, when it comes to humanity, a situation like this, sometimes you really do have to step up. You do.
Yep.
As a police officer, as a human being, you do. Your job is to serve and protect. And they were not serving and protecting George Floyd.
Jim, you're about to say something real quick before I jump in?
Yeah, real quick. I'd like you guys to point you guys to Cariol, Cariol Horn. She was a Buffalo police officer who who stopped another officer from abusing a perpetrator or an accused perpetrator. And she was fired as a result. Later on, even after she was fired, she's had 12 appeals since. Even though the officer said she didn't jump on her, she was accused of having jumped on her and was made up afterwards. And that was part of the reason that was cited as for firing her. Mm-hmm. And so she's lost her job and still fighting for it like this many years later, trying to stop the type of incident that we're talking about. Right. And so I just want you to consider like these officers understand as much as we do some of the depth to which, these things reach. So
all right, I want to read some comments real quick. Ernest Cooper says exactly his history was terrible. Maria Lopez says, but when my boss is wrong, she corrects him respectfully.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And then she also said, this is like in elementary school. He said, she said, he's an adult. He could have said, no, this is wrong, and remove his colleague. So I mentioned earlier that I talked to the Greenbelt police officers last night, and I was talking to Officer Defaba, and he trains in tactical and defense, and he explained he would never need to detain someone with that technique for nearly 9 minutes. It just would never happen. he also told me that cops only follow orders. They're taught they're only to follow orders if it's
Chain of command.
moral, unless it's moral, immoral, or illegal. You know, if anything is immoral or illegal, you do not follow orders. So, you know, I don't have any. I don't give them a pass at all, because when you see a man who is completely, he's basically dead, but unresponsive, and you still have his knee in his neck for another 3 minutes, and you don't do or say anything or significant enough to get him off, that's not enough for me. I don't care if he was Denzel Washington in Training Day. I don't even care.
Well, and we saw what happened to Denzel Washington in Training Day.
That's what should happen to Sharp and the rest of them. All right. So we did come across this video. Liz sent me this video earlier today. And since we were talking the subject, I wanted to go ahead and show it real quick and have a quick conversation, because we're way over time today for some reason. But,
We can't identify the reason. We can't do it.
all right. But let's go ahead and show this video real quick and just get your thoughts. Let me see if I can get it up here.
Yeah. You'll go with us to the hospital? Yeah. You get in the back of the ambulance? Yeah. Come on.
Now, real quick, I want to just explain what was happening. This is a black guy who was in the street. He's clearly distressed in some way. It could have been mental. It could have been drugs. They were uncertain
In
at the
our
time.
hood. This is in our hood. This is in our backyard. This happened in Fairfax, Virginia.
Right. And
So in the DMV.
so it was right around the corner from where we are currently. And you just heard him ask, the ambulance driver asked him, do you want to get in the ambulance? And he actually says yes. And then you'll see what happens next. Lost the video for a second.
As you're trying to find it, I should also point out that in the beginning of the video, the reason why they came to the scene was because he'd been in the street for a little while, obviously in distress, but asking for oxygen. Asking for oxygen. He was never violent. He never approached anyone. He never made lunges to anyone. But it was clear that he was having some issues. And the initial officers on the scene were very peaceful. They were to de-escalate the situation. The EMT person asked him, like Neil said, asked him, do you want to get in the ambulance? He said to him earlier, I am here to help you. What can I do for you? So the initial officers on the scene were doing what they were supposed to do. They were doing their jobs. And then this is what happened.
Hey, you're going to get in the back of the ambulance, right? No? Is he wanted?
Roll over. Roll over.
No reason. No reason.
No. Diddy.
Anthony, relax.
Diddy.
Anthony, relax.
Diddy.
Anthony, give me your arm.
Diddy.
Anthony.
Well, watch it gets worse. Look at this. Why is this necessary? Really?
No.
Look at his arm when he turns over.
Step it up.
Understand this is right after he agreed to get in the ambulance. He said yes, so we're in the ambulance.
Get up. I got you. No. Come on, man. Calm down. You got cuffs? You got cuffs? Arms right here under
We're at Fordson and Fordson.
Jackson under your belly.
I got him, Jackson. Go ahead, go Jackson.
I got his shoulders down. I got him right here.
You got him right
People
here.
wonder why
Coming up.
you resist arrest. It's because
You can't breathe, Diddy.
I mean,
Get up,
you're trying to get away.
Diddy. No, nobody's on your neck. Nobody's on your neck,
Hey,
buddy.
we're going to get you rolled over. We're going to get you rolled over.
Diddy.
Wants to get away.
Diddy, I can't breathe. Diddy, I can't breathe, Diddy. Diddy, I can't breathe, Diddy.
Hey, we're going to roll you over. Are you good?
So you see, they repeatedly tell him to calm down. And my question is, how do you expect someone who just got tased in their torso, in their neck, had a knee put to their neck, how do you expect them to calm down? Your immediate natural reaction
It's to get
is
away
to
from
be
it.
frantic. is to get away from it, to try to save yourself. But again, I say he was not posing a threat to anyone. Like, yeah, he was out of it, but he didn't charge the officers. He didn't have any weapons on
Just
him.
walking around in the street.
Any sudden gestures or anything. So where is your training to de-escalate the situation?
I just want to play real quick. I just want to play the very beginning because I paused it in the middle of it. I just want you to see how he just gets out of his car and runs at the guy. So he just gets out of his car and he just decides. Let me turn.
Meaning he didn't assess. He didn't have time to assess the situation.
So, I mean, it was completely unnecessary, and this is what we're talking about. I mean, fortunately, this officer was immediately arrested. Not immediately, but he was arrested.
He was fired. You about to lose your job. He was fired.
You want me to play that?
He was arrested.
I got
he
that
was
queued
fired.
up too.
He was arrested. And in the press conference, you could see that the chief of police was just undone. Like, what is happening? What is happening?
Yeah.
This is not how you treat people.
Yeah. So, any quick comments from B-Girl and Jam?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, B.
Thank you. But it was just my first thoughts, again, very emotional and very unnecessary show of violence. And I think that it comes down to this societal fear we are taught to have against Black men, as alongside the way we teach police officers to like immediately react with this type of force if they feel they're in danger. And so then they see a Black man, they've been taught to feel they're in danger, so they react the way they've been taught. And so I think it really, and a lot of police stations have started, I'm not going to say a lot, some have started like bias training and de-escalation, and they've been trying to learn that not all things are black and white, and to not immediately go for violence when you see a situation and you're not sure what's happening. But I think that's just egregious, and I'm glad he was fired, and I'm glad he was arrested relatively quickly. But this can't keep happening. We need to rethink the way we teach our police officers, and then rethink the way we see Black men as a society, as a group.
All right, Jam, you got like 3 seconds. Come on.
All right. Please, one of the things this reminds me of very much, your comment, B-Girl especially, is a book that I read once about when they were testing officers as to what they see. They'd show them like a Black person, and they'd show them something, and it's to determine whether they thought they saw a weapon or whether they didn't. They'd flash like a picture and it alternate. And I'll get you guys the group more information on this later. It's by the author of Freakonomics. Liz, can you help me here? I cannot think of his name. Malcolm something.
Just put it on the page. Once you remember it.
I'll put it on the page. But it's the whole idea that these officers and all of us expect to see weapons when we see a person of color, especially a dark-skinned person. And so to break that cycle, that mental cycle that's been bred into us, is a lot more than our country has been willing to face up to and handle. I'll leave it there for now.
All right.
But I would like to say there's a parallel between this and education, and we'll get into that.
Yeah, later. All right. So just a couple of comments from online. Jeanette Brown said something really profound. I'm putting this out here. No one has ever hurt me in my life ever more than white heterosexual men. She says, them dangerous.
And we should say Jeanette Brown is one of our classmates, and she is a white woman saying that. So that is very profound.
Natasha Blaine says, I recently spoke to the Montgomery County police officer, and he told me that his best weapon is his voice. How we talk to people matters.
Yes.
All right, let's move on. That's the end of Jam sessions. Great job, guys. Great
Good
job.
run.
All
Thank
right.
you guys for the questions.
Good questions. All right.
Doing good, B-Girl. Doing good.
Yeah, B-Girl, great job. We love having you. So, we are not done, so don't leave us. I know we're over time. You're used to us being close to done by now. All right. No. So we're going to move on to our topic with Liz. The kids take their Heinies to college? Is it worth it? So Liz, talk to us.
So, before we get into the topic, let me just set the tone for the audience here. So, everyone on this panel has been to college, has had some college experience. Our guest host for today, B Girl, is currently a college student at Wesleyan, correct?
I am a graduating senior on my way to Wellesley College.
Okay,
So
very
not a
good.
college.
Okay, and I am a college professor at Howard University. I think Jam went to college, right?
As far as I know, I mean, they
I
got
can't
my-
tell.
And Neo also went to college. So we all have some experience with higher education. And so my immediate question to you, the group, is, was there any chance at any point in your life, in high school, once you graduated, did you ever consider not going to college?
No.
I'll jump in. No. In my graduating life, no. I always considered going to college. That was the plan, the expectation. My parents, insisted on it. So yeah, that was the plan. You girl?
Jam,
Uh,
Carol?
Good. Jam, go ahead. You can start.
Okay. I did not even consider not going to college. Like, I'm pretty sure I would have gotten hit in the back of the head with something by mom and then dad. So I don't think I'm going to the bathroom is what I was gonna say. Not even.
Yes,
B-girl?
much of the same. I was going to say, yes, much of the same. I think as soon as I was born, my grandma was like, doctor, lawyer, or doctor, you have several choices. And those were my expansive choices. But I think end of my junior year, I had a teacher who taught a lesson to us, and it was a group of like honor students. It was in a magnet program at our school. And he kind of told us not to go to college. And I think that was the first time I considered not going. And we can get into the reasons why he gave a little bit later, but it did make me really think about, why I was going to college and which college I was going to choose because of those things.
Just to quickly answer my own question, it never crossed my mind to not go to college. Early on, my dad really instilled in me that, one, there's a world beyond Washington, D.C. There's a world beyond high school, your high school friends or whatever. And in order to achieve a lot of goals that you have said that you want for yourself, you're going to have to step it up and take it to the next level. So it was always ingrained in me, not forced, but ingrained in me that college was what I wanted to do to get to my end goal in my professional career. But I've talked about this topic a lot with my students at Howard University, and I posed that exact same question to them. Did you guys ever think about not going to college? And was college always an expectation for you from your parents? And a good portion of the students said they did have alternative plans for themselves. But like, Jam and B Girl said, their parents nixed those plans in the bud. But I think the topic of discussion here for today, should students take their hindparts to college? Should it be an automatic thing? Should it be something that's almost mandatory or innate at this point? And I, again, have to reflect on my students, because I had several students in my classes who obviously did not belong there, obviously had no interest in being there. Obviously, it became more obvious that the curriculum and the structure was something that they were not yet mature for. It was something that they were not yet ready for. And so that's why this is one of the topics that I wanted to explore. So let me just give the audience a couple of statistics very quickly. So in October 2019, 62.2% of 2019 high school graduates ages 16 to 24 were enrolled in colleges or universities. Among the 20 to 24-year-olds who received a bachelor degree, 76% were employed. Now, that number doesn't say they were employed by the degree that they graduated with, but nevertheless, they were employed. And remember, back in our parents' generation, it wasn't college. You were good if you had a high school diploma. But now we've upped the ante a little bit and made college almost mandatory for someone to be successful. And think about the way we talk about people who don't have a college degree. It's almost frowned upon, right? You look at someone and you're like, oh, well, did you at least get your high school diploma? Do you at least have a GED? So then the question becomes, are people putting themselves at a disadvantage, these students, by committing to college, even though they don't want to be there, but then also because they are committing to potentially years and years of debt? Now, I went to University of Colorado for undergrad, double degree in English and journalism, was there for 5 years. And then subsequent to that, I got a master's degree at NYU. So my college debt was through the roof. It took me 19 years to pay off my student loans. And I had it set up so that it was directly garnished from my wages, because I didn't even want to think about it. Didn't want to worry about making a late payment, just take it from my wages. And so one day I happened to look at my paycheck and it was significantly larger than the previous one. And I didn't understand why. Called payroll. They explained it to me. My college loans were done. I cried because it was something that I just assumed was going to be the monkey on my back forever. But that also is something to consider when we force students to commit to college, especially when they don't have a vision of what they want to study. What was that, Jam?
Excuse me, real quick. If you'd like another monkey on your back, I have some monkeys sitting in my bank account that need to go on someone else's back. They've been around 20-some years. So you let me know what size monkey you
Not in the Rona. Not in the Rona.
Mind if I jump in and give you some comments online?
Sure.
All right, we got Kevin Thaxton. Sometimes it kills apprenticeships.
Absolutely.
Jeanette Brown says, my brother didn't graduate, in part to piss off my highly educated family. He became a chef. I didn't consider it as ever a choice. Rupka says it should be mandatory and funded by the government. Whoever education needs is used for goodness on earth, whatever you take up.
Well, and that's an interesting point to consider, the suggestion that it should be college or higher education should be funded by the government. As I've mentioned before, before I started college, I was an exchange student in Finland for roughly 15 months. And Finland, like most European countries, most other countries outside of the US, college universities are not expensive. The most you pay going to the University of Helsinki, the University of Tampere, or something like that, is maybe $1,500 a year. Period. That doesn't even, in the United States, that doesn't even cover your in-state tuition. So let's talk about tuition numbers a little bit. So public in-state tuition on average for 2019 was $10,000, $10,116. Public out-of-state average for public university 4 years was $29,000. But again, it could go much higher than that. Private, which NYU, a lot of people think because it's New York University that it's a public university. No, NYU is very private. Average private tuition was $39,000 a year. So if you don't get scholarships, if you don't qualify for scholarships, if you don't qualify for grants, you're talking about loans. That's a lot of debt to put on a student when they come out of school.
Big, do you have some comments?
Certainly, I'll jump in here for sure. So when I was told not to, or to consider not going to college, I think for a lot of people my age, and I've talked to a lot of my friends about this, the experience comes at a cost that a lot of us aren't sure we'll be able to pay, and we're not sure if our parents can pay. And so as much as we want like the valuable experience, and I think it's worth noting that colleges no longer have the monopoly on knowledge anymore because of the internet, right?
That's
and
a good point.
a lot of people are going to college, and the reason I'm going to college is because when I walk into a room, I need people to take me seriously, that I know what I'm saying, particularly since I want to get into politics. And so when I picked a college that would give me a prestigious degree and said, hey, she went to the school Hillary Clinton went to for undergraduate. She's ready. Trust her. And so I think a lot of students are really considering this. I mean, we're paying upwards of $50,000 get scholarships from several of my schools, but it's the what it took to get there, and schools are giving out less and less money, and you can't just rely on athletics or even academics to get you that money. People are really considering their options now, and so I think that's really important. Tuition plays a big role. I think it's on a lot of students' minds.
Well, let me just piggyback off of something B-Girl said. So a university professor at George Mason University, his name is Brian Kaplan. And this is what he had to say about the aesthetics of going to college. When you go to school, when you go to college, you're showing off. You may also be picking up useful skills, but one of the things you do is to look better than other people. You say, look at me. I'm able to get this degree from Harvard. I'm able to get this degree from Georgetown. I'm able to get this degree from the state university. That means I'm smart, I'm hardworking, I'm willing to play by the rules. And those are things that employers are looking for first. Whether or not you were good enough to get into the school, whether or not you were disciplined enough to get into the school, not necessarily whether you are qualified for the position, but whether you bought into this idea that college is for everyone. Comments?
I think that to jump on that, it's important to reflect on the history of our country and the world. One of the notable examples is lawyering, which is a word, and medicaling, which is also a word. And the fact that instead of having schools, before there were schools to do that, these professions took on apprentices. And you became a master in that. Look at Pip from Great Expectations. But all these, where did that come from? But all these examples of people you're trained up, because that's where the real experience comes from. So much so that even in today's society, someone who goes to school to be a doctor goes to college, then they go to med school, and they still got to spend some time with a doctor or doctors learning what they need to know. And so people who don't spend that much time, many nurses you speak to will say, I know as much, if not more, than a doctor. They can provide the same treatment, they're just not allowed to. And so to that end, and that's just the more high-end professional jobs. And we still have to look at, as our world moves forward, all the things that change. IT becomes more and more specified, but things that don't change, if you don't need a plumber in 2 or 3 years, you will. If you don't need a roofer in 2 or 3 years, you will. If you don't need a myriad of those jobs that we consider basic, that are so integral, and even now with COVID, who are the first people who we know are going to have jobs? Bamas, for lack of a better term, serving food somewhere, because we all need to eat. Before we do anything, before we get this show together, everybody's hungry.
At least B-Girl knows what Bama's means now.
Oh,
I do.
That's
college can
of that. Why aren't we promoting with our youth, especially guidance counselors in high school, even parents? You see that your child probably is not gonna do well on the college path. So why is it still frowned upon? Or why are we not promoting vocational schools, trade schools, where students can pick up an immediate skill and earn money?
Nancy DeVos, that's why.
So, before we close out this thing, go ahead, B-Girl.
I was going to say, I totally agree. I think when we were taught this lesson, we were taught about all these other professions that like college couldn't lead you to. And if you decided later on that you would be a good plumber, but you already got into all this debt because you did 4 years of school, then I'm not quite sure that college is worth it for all students.
Right. So I have a question real quick. So do we believe that you make more money if you have a college degree in general?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, go whoever.
I think it depends on the profession, and I think we have to account that the average person in the 21st century has 2 phases to their professional life. They start off as one thing, and then at some point they may switch over. So my first profession as a sports journalist, I was making way more money than what I'm making now as a college professor. I make no money right now. And yeah, I just finished my first year as a full-time professor, but you would be shocked at how little we get paid in this profession. But do I think that going to college, I would have been able to have the career? Not going to college, I would have been able to have the career that I've had over the past, 25 years? No. But that's just me. I don't think we are accounting for the people who, one, don't necessarily have a plan. So if you don't have a plan, then why not take up something where you can find yourself that's a little less expensive than a university that's costing you and you're paying all this tuition. But we also have to consider too the number of students that go to college but then drop out.
Jam?
Like the average, 1 in 5 students who commit to a 2-4 year college, they don't graduate. They don't complete the program. So in a sense, that's wasted money where they could be going somewhere else and picking up a trade and figuring out and making good money right in the present.
Right, Jam?
There's a lot to these guys, but so I would say the value of college itself, it tends to be, I think, in the power of who you get to know. That is actually probably one of the largest benefits that
Networking.
as education diversifies, we see less of, because that ability to network, I think B-Girl actually touched on it earlier, it's like being a skull and bone, besides, dressing up in black and pulling people out in the middle of the night and doing random things at Harvard or Yale, wherever that was. You get to broaden the amount of people who can help you get a job doing something you have no business doing, and then you can learn how to do it or get fired from it and go do it somewhere else where you do it better. Right. And there are other ways to do that, but college is one of the main access points to begin that process.
E-Girl?
I was going to answer a quick question. Someone had asked, I think it was geared toward me, but they had asked why a women's college, and then they said something about HBCUs under it. I know specifically for me, my choosing a women's college kind of went back to the networking, where women's colleges work really hard to get women in high-paying jobs. And if I want to have a high-paying job, if I want the job in the future, the reason I picked this school, honestly, wasn't necessarily the stellar education I'd be receiving, which I agree I'll be receiving, but the networking. Who am I going to meet? I'm going to meet the women that'll be the next generation of women to do great things, right? So I looked at those numbers. I looked at my school. I said, you produce more female CEOs than all of the Ivy Leagues combined. I'm going there, right? So I know what I want, and that's why I chose the school, but I'm also paying that price for it, right? I was aware that this is going to be expensive, but I'm going for the network. And I think HBCUs can be similar in that they work very hard to get African Americans into these professional jobs. And I did consider several HBCUs when applying to school. So I think all those things matter. And a lot of kids are focusing on the network. I talked to a boy who's going to Harvard, and he said, that's it. He just needs to know the people so he can get his foot in the door for the job that he wants.
So real quick.
And see, again, it hones in on what is specific to you and what you felt your plan was and your needs were at the time. For me, I didn't apply to any HBCUs. It never even occurred to me, never thought about going to HBU, because that didn't fit into what my needs were as a potential sports journalist, English major at the time. And I needed to get out of DC. I can't tell you the number of people that have asked me over the years, why didn't you go to Howard? Well, because I grew up in DC. I needed something outside of that bubble. But specifically, my desire to be a sports journalist, I needed to go to a school that had a top 5 Division I football program, national championship caliber. That's not an HBCU. And so I had to do what was specific for me. And that's not a knock against HBCUs or anything, but I had a plan, and I knew what I needed to do to stick to that plan. But that plan might not be the same for everybody else. Yep. And I think people need to start to pay attention to the needs of these students and what they desire for their future.
Yeah. So as far as my thoughts, it really has to do with the networking, the experience. Because if you look at the education differences between an HBCU or, a top 10 college or, a top 200 college, the education level is not much different. There's not a significant difference in the education, but it is about networking, as B Girl said. Now, as far as the ability to be successful without a college degree, there are people who don't have college degrees that do extremely well. A little known fact is because my family had money issues growing up, I wasn't able to finish college and get my degree. So I did go to school. I just didn't finish and get my degree because then I had to move out, go on my own, pay for college. But I make an income now that's in the top 10% of the United States. So, do I need a college degree to be successful? No. And B-Girl made the great point about the YouTube era because I learned my skills, I honed my skills using YouTube, Google, etc. So, it's a new world now, and I don't know that college is required to be successful. But if you have a path like B Girl has towards a path, there are certain schools that can get you there faster and better. So those are my thoughts.
I think that that's you touched on what we're all looking at and facing is that we have this new gig economy, which was the word I was looking for earlier, and there are a lot of paradigms that have completely shifted. When we were kids, there was the thought process that you had to go to college, you had to invest in the stock market to do this, and we're slowly shifting. We've shifted through like our time where that was still sort of powerful, and now we're to a point where college is, if it's not free or close to free, is it really worth it at all? Even if you get a job, will that job be around in 5 or 10 years because of how technology is advancing? So even if you have a degree, will that degree mean anything after that occurs? Yep. And so it really is who you know or what you're creating versus where we were 25, 30 years ago versus where they were 25, 30 years before that, coming out of a war, dealing with other stuff.
All right, Liz, any last words before we close this down?
I just think I appreciate all of the opinions here from our staff, from our panel, and also some of the opinions that have been on our webpage here. I think for all of the parents, potential parents in the audience or guardians in the audience, it's something that you might want to think about as your children grow and mature, and consider that college isn't necessarily the be-all, end-all. It's great if it works for your child. It's great if it works for you. It's not so great if it doesn't work. So I think you need to open up the conversation to alternative opportunities and resources that they can take advantage of that might interest them and make them more successful as they journey through this path we call life.
I do want to point out a couple of comments online. We have Natasha saying, agreed, my MA, JD, and PhD have given me much flexibility. I'm certainly more marketable, but I'm also in a lot of debt too. And then I see Jeanette said, my mom wanted me to go to an all-women's school as well. Rupka says, the degree is not all about being highly paid. It gives a sense of pride, self-worth, to know you did it. And you were disciplined to accomplish it. So,
I also think it's worth noting the context of race as well, that for a lot of African Americans to be taken seriously in a room, if you're already looked down upon, that degree matters. And I think my parents definitely drove that into me, that I would not be viewed the same if I go up to an employer and say, hey, I have this this high school diploma, but I can do good work. It might not be the same effect.
That's true. All right.
Well, to speak to Kevin's comment real quick, I learned more from attending HBCU. I didn't play sports, and people at the MW, and people wonder why I was there to friggin' learn, of course. So anyway, thanks, Kevin.
All right, guys. So we have Don't leave us. We have one more segment left. All right, I know it's been a while.
This might be our longest show yet.
This is definitely our longest show. But we have
So
a fun
sorry.
game. We have a fun game, so it should be a lot of fun. So don't
It'll be
leave
more
yet.
funner.
All right.
More funner.
More funner. Yep. So
More
More fun.
That college
You really went.
Julius.
I went to the good schools. Leave me
all
be.
right, so let me pull this up. You said good school is. All right. So we're going back to our fun game, Would You Rather? Yeah. All right. So the simple game, the app will display two options and ask the question, would you rather? You state what you would rather do, and then the app has predetermined the most popular answer. If you match the most popular answer, Jam will give you a point. Person with the most point wins and gets the last word at the end of our show. All right. And Jam, you got the score, right?
Got the score.
You're all set? All right. So, B-Girl, since you're our guest, you get to choose the topic. We got popular, impossible, love package, the funny package.
Let's go with funny.
Funny.
I think we all need a little laugh.
Yes.
Talk about some heavy topics.
All right. So here's the question. Would you randomly time travel plus or minus 20 years every time you fart? Or would you prefer to teleport to a different place on Earth and on land, not water, every time you sneeze?
I'm gonna go sneeze for sure.
Sneeze?
Um,
All right. Jam?
Sneeze.
All right.
Sneeze.
Liz?
Sneeze.
Yeah, I'm not
Too
going
much
back in
travel.
time.
Way too
I
much
might 20.
yeah, slavery.
We
Every
go too
time I
many
fart,
minus 20 years. I might be in the wrong place. Nope,
Right.
not
Taco
happening.
Tuesday is gonna be way too much traveling.
And you know, shoot,
I
if
live
I
a
eat
little-
some cabbage or something, yeah, I might go too far back.
right.
Let's see the answer. Hold on. All right, so everybody gets a point. Teleport to
All right.
a different place on Earth.
Wow. Okay.
The travelers.
All right. So, would you rather every shirt you ever wear to be kind of itchy, or only be able to use one-ply toilet paper? Ah, this is easy for
One
me.
ply. One
Yeah.
ply. One ply.
Jam's
One
got one
ply.
ply.
Yeah, I can say one ply
One
for me as
ply.
well.
One ply.
You can
Yeah.
double, triple up one ply. That's easy.
Wow, I'm
How was that
surprised.
close?
Everybody gets a
How was
point,
that
but I'm
close?
surprised.
How
I'm
was that
surprised
close?
45% said that. All right,
Right.
you ready?
That is not equivalent.
All right, right. All right. Would you rather be completely invisible for one day or be able to fly for one day?
Invisible Lizzie. Invisible Lizzie.
Fly for sure. Fly for
I'm going with
sure.
fly. I'm going with
That's
fly.
in COVID times. Fly.
I'm flying.
Invisible.
Oh!
Oh.
Look who won
Oh,
that
no.
one. Uh-oh.
Y'all don't know all the good stuff you can get while you're invisible. Ah.
That's true. It's almost like
That's
flying.
true.
Dude.
All right.
Yeah, we almost saw you down the street at Gucci. Mm-hmm.
Kevin's doing the one fly, by the way. Kevin's invisible, too. All right. Would you rather have hands that kept growing as you got older, or have
That's a
feet
Trump thing.
that kept growing
Trump.
as you got older?
Trump. It's this Trump's.
Or would you have bigger feet
feet-
or bigger hands?
feet.
Big girl.
Feet
Going with
for
feet?
sure. I'll just put them in really tiny
Liz?
shoes.
Lizzie?
I'm gonna say hands because I'm a shoe girl.
Mm.
And so I can't, now my 4-inch heels, there's only so much you can do if you have like a 13-inch shoe size. So yeah, I'm gonna go hands
All right. Jam?
or
There's a
feet.
lot less replacement involved with hand growth than shoe growth. I mean,
I'm going with hands, too. So we only got one shoe, right?
Yeah.
Oh, which foot is it?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
90%.
oh.
Wow.
Wow, that's
Day winning.
upsetting.
Okay. So I lost that. All right. Would you rather go bald or
Listen,
be forever cursed to have terrible haircuts? Oh, this is easy.
listen. My eyebrows are already falling out. I want to cut off, shave my head right now. So go bald. Bald is an easy option. Easy.
I would say
That's
go bald
what-
as well. I saw Black Panther. I'm ready. Wakanda bald.
Wakanda
Get a little
forever.
head tattoo.
Hair,
All out. What are they gonna say? What are they gonna say?
haircuts.
Haircut.
You going with
all the way.
haircuts? I'm going with bald.
Haircut.
I mean,
What about a mullet?
You are bald. You are bald.
It's easy. Oh, look at that. Haircut.
Oh!
That's a
Talking about-
surprise.
Talking about. Woo! Take all my hair. knock
Even
it out.
Kevin and Jeanette were bald. All right. So, would you rather be beautiful or handsome, but stupid, or intelligent but ugly?
What age you talking?
Yeah, I was
This is
like,
tough. I'm going with Liz first. Go Liz first.
So I'm gonna go with beautiful, handsome, but stupid because this question doesn't account for my ability to gain knowledge. Whereas, if you ugly, then you have to get some plastic surgery and do all of that other stuff.
But you can
So
fix it, right? All right, Jam.
Oh, I was gonna go with purple. Intelligent but ugly.
All
Look,
right,
man.
B girl.
I'm gonna have faith in humanity and say intelligent but ugly. Hopefully, beauty standards change. We start looking on the inside, and we'll be good to go.
I'm going
You
intelligent
can
but
fake our
ugly
shit.
too.
You can fake
I-
our shit, me girl.
Because I figure you can fix ugly. You can't fix stupid.
you can certainly fix
You
stupid.
can't fix stupid.
You can't fix stupid. Stupid.
Stupid.
You can't fix
That's because
stupid.
those folks want to fix their stupid, like Snoop Dogg. But
Because
you
they're
can
too
fix
stupid to fix their stupid.
it.
Oh, look at you. You get it. You're right. Beautiful, handsome, but stupid.
It's all B girl's fault. She lost us that one. Putting her faith in humanity.
All right, so let's go first one to 5. Let's go first one to 5. Call it a day.
I don't even know how many I have.
You got 3.
All right. Would you rather be balding but fit or overweight
on.
but full of hair?
They just do not
Be
like
balding but fit.
Yeah, this is
I have
Right.
balding. I want to be
Bald
bald.
and fit.
Bald.
Uh-oh.
Bald and like a 6-pack. Bald and fit.
It looks like Lizzie might. Let's see what happens. Oh, we all lost a point. All right.
You're all wrong. No, why? I don't.
Well, it depends on who they're asking. You got to consider who
Yeah,
they're asking.
people are really attracted. You can wear a wig.
Wearing.
You can wear a wig.
Out here, people, wigs.
Kevin said fit. Ernest pointed out they misspelled intelligent in the previous one. He's right.
See?
Neither of us caught. None of us caught it.
I call
And they're
I
ugly.
said-
And
All
they're
right.
ugly.
Would you rather be fluent in all languages and never be able to travel, or be able to travel anywhere for a year but never be able to learn a word of a different language?
type of silly purple.
Yeah.
Why
I
go
gotta-
to the air?
I gotta go travel. Too.
I mean,
I can learn. Not learn, but
But you'll never be
I'm
able to
gonna-
learn the language.
I'm going to take travel as well because what's the point in knowing all languages
If you don't go
if
anywhere.
you can't communicate? Yeah, you don't go anywhere. You can't communicate with those people.
All right. Let's see what they say.
What are you talking about? You get to go to Chuck E. Cheese?
All right.
All right.
Oh, it's
So,
fun.
who's the champion? Lizzie. All right. That was fun.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Good choice of category. Lizzie is our winner for Would You Rather. Thanks, Liz. E.
All right.
For playing.
Congratulations.
Thank you all.
Congratulations.
Thank you all.
We'll beat you next time. Who won the last one? I forgot. That
Me.
was I think East won last week. Oh, you did win the
Nope,
last week. Yeah,
it was me.
that's right.
We got to recount. We got to recount. The judges call for recount. Governors call for recount. So
All right. So we got some last minute shout outs. We're going to shout out people who were online last minute or so. Before we
I
close
want
it
to
out.
shout out. I'm not sure if he's online, but I think we need to give a shout out to our boy, classmate, fellow co-host, Ruben Gorn. Ruben Gorn has been on the front lines of the DC protest all week, posting pictures, giving his commentary, and reporting on what he's seen. Shout out to you, Ruben. I appreciate it. I appreciate it 100%.
All right. Cam, you got some shout outs?
Yes, I got a shout out to Jeanette, Kevin, Alice, Pa, Rubka, Natasha, Ty, Teresa, Maria. Did I miss anybody? If I did, I'll let y'all get them.
B-Girl, you got some people?
All my shout outs, I was going to say Kevin and Jeanette have been, I see their comments pop up all the time. They've been very active and very positive. So thank you so much for watching and participating.
I see Akila. We had
Tigers
Zuleika.
for life.
Z was on listening. So, Z, we'll see you next week, right?
Miss Z,
Z will be
girl.
with us next week, so look out for her.
Randolph, thank you, Randy.
Yeah. Maria was out there having fun. All right.
Appreciate y'all.
Yeah, it was a good
y'all.
show. Good show. I
Protesters,
enjoyed it.
You get
All
a
right.
shout out too.
All right, so that's our show. I'd like to thank you all for joining us. We hope you had a good time, maybe gained a new perspective, learned something. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe at TLS Live Show, or you can go to www.tlslive.show. All right, and we'll see you Wednesday, 8 p.m., all jam session, Hot Topics show. And since we have a winner from our show, Lizzie, you have the last word for today.
Last word. So another quick shout out to our DC citizens and nation. It's been a very hyped week here in the nation's capital. A lot of protests. It started off on a rough note, with peaceful protesters getting tear gas, but I think we ended on a good note, and we ended on putting a challenge to our mayor in terms of if she's going to be proactive in hearing some of the concerns of our nation's capital citizens. So I want everyone in the city to not only be safe, but to keep making your voices heard so we can invoke change in the city that we love.
All right. And B-Girl, you did a fantastic job. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. We're going to have you back.
Glad to have you, B-Girl. Glad to have
You
you.
coming back, B-Girl? Can we get you to commit?
Same B channel.
All right. Okay. Since you put me on the spot on the hot seat, I
That's
will
right.
be back
All
really
right.
soon.
All right. Great job, B-Girl. We appreciate you. All right. Have a great one, guys. We'll see you we'll see you this Wednesday. All right.
Good run, y'all. Good
See
run.
ya. See ya.